Hola! This is Aaron from Aaron Gone Traveling. So today we'll be talking about the ultimate guide on how to learn languages with podcast. The resources that I normally use are all free, and today I'll break it down to you the step-by-step guide on how to learn a language using a podcast. So, one of my morning routines is to listen to a podcast. I normally wake up refreshed in the morning. If I feel refreshed, I have more brain space to absorb a language, and that would be Spanish. So I would try to learn as much Spanish as I can. I would listen to a Spanish podcast, and even though I pay full attention, I would just understand 70 to 80% of what the podcast person is trying to say. If I wake up feeling slightly groggy, feeling slightly tired, I don't have that much brain space to absorb a language, then I'll listen to a French podcast because my mastery in French is slightly better than my Spanish. It's mainly passive learning that I'm doing with French because I'm only listening to it without paying full attention because I have the ability to understand most of it without having to use much of my brain. Obviously, with this podcast, you gotta find something that's suitable for your level that you will be able to understand at least 50% of the content. Because if you listen to some of the podcasts that's made for the native speakers, you'll find that the speaker in the podcast will speak with a bullet train speed and you will understand nothing and will be disappointed with yourself and you'll be discouraged and you don't want to learn the language anymore. So do not do that. Find something that is suitable for your level. Normally every morning I will spend around 30 minutes listening to the podcast. I normally get hooked on this podcast anyway. I want to know the development of the story because it's always about traveling. I listen to something that I like, and you should do that too. Find something that you like. Some of the podcasts that I listen to have got transcriptions ready for you to read, which I find that as a bonus because oftentimes I don't understand the entire podcast. I have to look up on the internet for words. But if there's a transcriptions, everything is written down. So I could just check out the transcriptions, see what phrases, what verbs, what nouns I didn't know before, and just jot it down onto my notebook. There are different ways that I try to use to try to consolidate these new words, new phrases into my brain. I write them down onto a website called Notion.so, which is a great platform for you to have a free notebook, and I find it really useful. Second thing I do, I write them down on a piece of paper, physically write them down. The third thing I do, I read it aloud, I pronounce it, I enunciate it as much as I can. I think my housemate is probably thinking that I'm crazy, always talking to myself. So these are the three things that I normally do, but it doesn't normally stick after 5 hours. I would just forget about it. And don't be discouraged because we all know that sleep is the best way to consolidate a new knowledge. That's why I go back to sleep. Nah, I'm joking. So you just have to give it time to process for your brain to be familiar with the new word. You just gotta repeat the process and have a look, review, revise, and it will stick to your brain magically. So after I have all my phrases down, I start forming sentences with all these new words that I've just learned. And for example today, let's just do an example today. So today I learned 5 new words, which is se suele, Spanish words. Se suele, al revés, de repente, en vez de, and por cuestión de. There's a accent there, so it should be cuestión. Por cuestión de. I could say no quiero hablar sobre de eso por cuestión de tiempo. No hay tiempo para hablar de eso. Okay, so what I just said is I don't want to talk about that in the matters of time. So, because we don't have time. That's what I was trying to say. And I realized that I just made a mistake over there. We should say sobre eso instead of sobre de eso. You don't need a de in between the sobre eso because, no, I don't need to explain why. This is not about Spanish. Learning a language is all about making mistakes and try to correct yourself to prevent yourself from committing to the same mistake again. The second thing that I would like to talk about when you are trying to form a sentence is that oftentimes we don't have the word in our brain to complete the sentence. And what do? Many people would just go on Google Translate and translate the word out, get the translation, and put it into the sentence. There's no context to it. You don't really know if that's the correct way of using that word. Don't get me wrong, I love Google Translate. It has saved me from many disasters when I'm traveling in places where I don't speak the language. But there's a better translation service out there, which is DeepL, which is also free. It gives you a more formal translation, which is when you have to use it with someone older or a stranger, depending on the country. It also gives you a different way of saying it in an informal way, which I think is great. But ultimately, something that I use every day is reverso.net. I think that's the best thing out there when you don't know a word. For example, when you want to say cash in English, it will translate out in Spanish in many different contexts. It can be cash, it can be money, it can be change, there's many forms of cash, right? So you gotta see what is the word that fits the context that you were trying to form a sentence with. Reverso is the best. So this whole process of listening to a podcast every morning for me takes around 1 to 1.5 hours. I listen to the podcast for 30 minutes. I read the transcription, I jot down notes, and that's for 30 minutes as well. And then I try to form sentences, try to do the reverso thing, try to Google Translate, try to deep link for 30 minutes until I have all my sentences formed. Sometimes it's slightly less than 30 minutes if I didn't learn that many words. And that's 1.5 hours. And then I go to work with a lot of productivity going on already, and I'm so keen every day at work because I feel like I did something good to myself, to my brain. I did some training, some mental exercise. It burns and I just feel good. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm very grateful that I've got more than 100 subscribers. Thank you so much. That is a big milestone for me myself, to give me a push to keep making videos. I popped some links down below about the resources that I use. I post a new video every Thursday on food, traveling, and languages. Stay subscribed, share it to your friends so you can tell them that you can learn a language for free just with podcast. How crazy is that? I will see you next time. Hasta pronto. Ciao ciao.